Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video from Average FPL. So, nearly here, game week one. We're going to have a bit of a preview, looking at the fixtures, and then we've got my final team, or at least as final as it shows. For now, there's always subject to a few last minute changes as the nerves hit and you start questioning your decisions. A lot of times you've got your team booked in all summer, and then a couple of days before the deadline, you just redo it all in a load of panic. But trust yourselves. If you've picked the players in your team for a reason, so give them a go. You don't be swayed too much by different people. Go with your gut instinct, um, whilst mixing that with new and upcoming information that you can get your hands on. So, looking at the fixtures here, it's really important to notice that it's a Friday deadline. So, the last thing you want on game week one is to miss the first deadline, because that just sucks all the oomph out of your enthusiasm going forward. But it's a Friday evening deadline, um, and we're looking at the fixtures here and possible captains for this week. I would go with Mo Salah, to be honest, myself. I think he usually does really well game week one. I think Fulham are a good team to play. Fulham have really tough enough fixtures to start the season, and we're going to look at that in a bit as well. Outside of Salah as the obvious one, you could look at Spurs assets, Kane or Son. Or maybe Jesus away at Crystal Palace, but it's a bit bold to put a captain on a player playing on a Friday night on the first game week of the season. Because again, if that doesn't hit and he doesn't score points, you then worry in the rest of the weekend. So it's how you want to attack it, really. But there'd be my main options. Other than that, I don't really see any outstanding candidates, and I would say that Salah is going to be really heavily captained. So if you don't want to get too far behind, you are worried about that, then captain Salah, even if he blanks, so many people captain him that it won't make that much of a difference anyway. So good fixtures for this game week. I mean, there's some tough ones out there as well. I think games like Leeds Wolves and Newcastle Nottingham Forest will be interesting, but trying to pick players from those teams that'll score you points is tricky. We've got nothing to go on in terms of form, uh, or price rises or injuries as such. You've just got the basics. So, I mean, hopefully, if you've planned for the first few weeks, all you're looking for in your first game week is just a solid start. Something that you're not too far behind. It's not a disaster, and then you can sort of get to grips with it and go from there. So, moving on to my team, and it's a pretty solid team. I've made a couple of changes, but if I do say so myself, it's looking all right. We've taken out a couple of players. We've taken out De Bruyne from the last one. I had him in, and I was really struggling to get contributing strikers as a result. I was stuck with two 4.5 million strikers that weren't going to play, and on previous videos, we were kind of juggling between you know a playing 11 and how deep do you need to go with your bench. I actually have a pretty much full playing bench, but it's not, for lack of sort of big hitters in the main team. It was the different. I had, point 0.5 left over, and it's like, well, do you get a 4 million defender that won't play, or do you get a 4.5 million defender that does play? And so to me, I know it reduces flexibility a bit, but I've got a good solid bench there, and hopefully, especially in defence where I've got sort of Ben White and Dan Burn and Williams and Anderson, I can rotate with the fixtures, and that gives me a bit less flexibility with the budget, but a bit more flexibility with the fixtures. In goal, I've gone with Henderson. Been keen on Henderson all summer. 4.5 million goalkeeper, definitely going to play. And yeah, I mean, maybe I've been a bit blinkered in terms of that, and I could go with someone else. But again, there's point differences limited between goalkeepers, and Henderson will be motivated for the World Cup. He wants to play um, in the World Cup in Qatar, or at least be in the squad, and so he's motivated to do well. Touch briefly on the defence. I've got Cancelo as well as a big hitter in there. Did have Trent, or looked at getting Trent in. Just couldn't really. afford it. And yeah, I could take out one of those defenders and for a 4 million defender and upgrade Cancelo to Trent. But for me, the point difference is minimal um, in that, and that point difference could also be made up through recreating it in different players throughout the season. So the main change we had was taking out De Bruyne. Very light on Man City players, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, I do think with Man City, it's going to take a bit of time to settle in. At the start of the season, we had Haaland, and everyone was really hot on Haaland. Still the case, but I think really it showed at Community Shield that it might just take a bit of embedding time. And I've said on previous videos that transfers coming from abroad, they do take time. Not to say he won't score, could easily get a couple of goals in game week one. Um, but I took out Haaland and De Bruyne just really to give me a bit more flexibility across the board. So the midfield, I'm really pleased with. I brought in Mount for De Bruyne, so it gave me 4 million to spend. Not overly keen on Chelsea, but I do think Mount will play, especially now they're sort of moving Havertz up front. There's a bit more midfield space for someone like Mount in terms of playing and literally on the pitch. He'll be able to go forwards a bit more in that attacking role. Went stuck with Lingard. Um, again, somebody that's got quite a bit to prove. He wants to play. And interesting, it was more the upside for someone like Lingard. He's only 6 million. I think, well, I can't see him dropping less than 6 million this season. As he, if I mean, Forest could easily get relegated, but I think if they are going to stay up, or they have a chance of staying up, Lingard's going to be contributing. Son and Salah speak for themselves. I think Salah could actually have a sort of season where he breaks his own point scoring record this year. I think having Mane leave, it's all going to be on Salah. I think the younger players are going to defer to Salah. He'll be on penalties. I think he could have an incredible season. So if you're not sure about who to get in Salah. Worry about the rest later. And then also able to bring in Saka. Uh, just you know, took out De Bruyne, now replacing with Mount and Saka. I think that's a pretty good trade. To be honest, I think Saka's going to be a part of everything that would be good about Arsenal this season. And same up front with Jesus. Jesus, so highly owned. I think he's about something like 75% owned, which is a huge, huge amount. And, previously these 8 million, 9 million strikers, they've not shown good value. Previous years you've had people like Lacazette for Arsenal's. You're not too sure whether they're going to play. Jesus hasn't left Man City to go to Arsenal and sit on the bench. He wants to be the main guy, and this is his moment. So we've got a few players in here with a lot to prove. And speaking of player with something to prove, last one at the starting 11 is Mitrovic. I spoke in a previous video and said, I really wanted Mitrovic in, and I know he's one of those players that's probably not going to be good enough for the Premiership, too good for the Championship. Um, but Fulham are one of my favourite Premier League teams, and I think, yeah, it's a little bit of wishful thinking, but why not? Like he could go for it, and if he continues that goal scoring form last season, like he was so good in the Championship last season, um, if he continues that, then I think 6.5 million is a bargain price. And, from your 6.5 million strikers, all you're really looking for is like 10, 12 goals a season. And the same for someone like Undav. I am keen on him as well coming in at Brighton. I think if he starts for Brighton, it'd be really interesting to see if, he is the finisher for those Brighton chances that they create. I know he's got Man United away in the first game, which is why he's my first sub. But moving forwards, I will be interested to see how Undav does. There's a strong chance he does nothing, but there is a reasonable chance he does something, and there is a tiny chance he smashes it. And if he does, I want to be there first, getting those points before those price rises. So rounding off the bench, we've got Williams and Anderson. Speaks for itself. Cheap defenders. I think Crystal Palace defender is solid to get in. Defended really well last season. Don't see why it can't continue. They're probably going to finish 11th, 12th, something like that. Not scoring many, not conceding many. And Williams, again, just like Lingard, gone to play. I think if Nottingham Forest to do anything, I'm sure he'll be a part of it. It does mean some weeks I might be doubling up on Nottingham Forest defence, which isn't ideal. I'm saying it out loud now. Maybe seems like a bad idea, but he's also in because he's a 4 million defender that plays. So I mean, as there's not really anyone else to move him to, I wouldn't feel any better having a 4 million defender in that doesn't play. So I might as well get him in, even if it means doubling up on Nottingham Forest. So yeah, this is the team. Um, Ways that I could possibly move off certain players. I've got quite a few mid-price players in Saka and Mount. Looking at someone like Mount, if Chelsea get off to a rough start, downgrade him to somebody, and that would just provide a bit more funds to maybe upgrade Mitrovic or Undav if I needed to, or if you get maybe looking at a premium defender coming in as well. But right now, I think that looks pretty good. Let me know what you think. Please, like and subscribe. Any support on the video is greatly appreciated. And I forgot to say it at the start. Um, which means no one will probably see that get this far because I'm sure people have had enough of me by now. But if you are still watching, please like and subscribe. Appreciate the support. Let me know what you're doing with your team. What do you think of my team? I think it's solid. Um, but yeah, potential to still make changes before the deadline. Good luck with your teams, and I'll see you in the next one.